Hey everyone, and welcome to a new video. With the proliferation of devices that have cameras built into them these days, something you hear all the time is, why do I need to buy an expensive camera? I've got my phone or tablet. Or, it's a waste to spend money on expensive cameras, it's just fancy marketing. My basic camera can do the same thing. So in this video I'm going to answer the question, can you tell the difference in real life on real photos made into real prints between a phone, an entry-level crop sensor, and a professional-grade full-frame camera? Is spending more money worth it? Or more importantly, when is spending more worth it? My name is Simon d'Entremont and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, before I get into showing you the various prints I made and the differences, a quick reminder on why differences may exist between these three cameras. The contenders are the Canon R5, a professional camera that I've been using for years and still use today. It's about $3,300 US these days, maybe $5,000 with a professional lens. It has 45 megapixels. Second, the Canon R100, the entry-level mirrorless camera you might buy as your first foray into an interchangeable lens camera with 24 megapixels. It's about $700 US with the kit lens. An upgraded high-quality lens on it might bring you to $1,300. And finally, my iPhone 14 Pro, which many would argue comes with a camera for free. Its main camera, which I'll be using, has 48 megapixels, but note that in low light combines 4 pixels 2x2 into 1 for 12 megapixels, a process called binning, which creates virtually larger pixels. In part, what we're going to answer here is, what are you buying in image quality when you spend more on a camera? Is it worth it? If the answer is it depends on what? And why might these cameras perform differently? First, the lenses are different, which might affect sharpness and details. The pixels are different sizes, which might impact the amount of detail you can capture in low light performance. And more expensive cameras might have more powerful processors and more expensive components. But the most significant difference here between these is sensor size. The phone has a tiny sensor of 10 by 7 millimeters. The R100 has what's called a crop sensor, or APS-C, at 22.3 by 14 by 9 millimeters, and the full-frame R5 36 by 24 millimeters. This larger size has theoretical benefits, including light gathering capacity. I made a whole video on the theory behind that, which you can see here, but make sure you come back. Okay, let's go to my test location, a lighthouse near my home, and I took shots with all three cameras in 3 different conditions. I arrived when the light was rather bright, which can test a camera's dynamic range. That is, the ability to capture bright whites and dark darks. The sun was more than 20 degrees above the horizon, which I would call overly bright conditions for most cameras. So I shot all 3 using ISO 100 in bright light using similar settings, although I can't change the aperture of my phone. It's a fixed aperture. I used the same lens on the 2 Canon cameras, the 14-35 f4, and changed the focal length to match the same field of view. I shot in RAW on the Canon cameras and had the phone set to ProRAW for highest quality 10-bit files versus 8-bit JPEGs. Then I waited for the sun to get lower and not so glaring, and I shot all 3 again in what I would call the just right light. Ideal conditions of not too bright, but not dark enough to bring in low light capability issues. ISO 100. And finally, a third scenario, I waited for the light to get lower, and I used ISO 5000 on all 3 to test low light capability as the light was getting scarce. In processing, I didn't do much other than lower the highlights and raise the shadows in all of the bright scene photos to try to recover the lights and darks the best I could, as one would do when processing photos in a bright scene. Although not really needed, as high-quality JPEGs are fine for printing, I did use TIFF format at the highest resolution of the photo. Adobe RGB color space, which is higher than sRGB and well recognized by print shops, and watermark them to tell them apart. And speaking of print shops, I didn't just send these anywhere for printing, but sent them to my print shop of choice, Whitewall, who are sponsoring this video. Nothing but the best for my tests. They're based in Germany and have won many awards since they started up in 2007. They have all kinds of sizes, frames, materials, and quality options. They have stores in New York, London, Berlin, and more, and ship to over 50 countries. They've won Best Photo Lab worldwide and won the TPA World Awards 5 out of the last 6 years. They're who I trust for my prints on my own website. Some of you may have seen that I've already gotten several acrylic prints for my home. I absolutely love these. I got these from Whitewall and couldn't be happier. Okay, for my test shots, I'm here on the Whitewall site. I upload all my test photos and go over to the configurator. There are lots of papers to choose from, but I went with Fuji Crystal and 80 by 60 centimeters as I wanted them large to compare. That's about 32 by 24 inches. Now, Whitewall has a great sharpening algorithm called Ultra HD, which is great for large prints in your home. But for this test, that's more science than art. I left it off. Also, you can order test prints at a reduced price from Whitewall, a great feature. But I went with standard prints, and I went through the same format for all 9 test prints. And here they are. When you order multiple prints, Whitewall puts plastic dividers between them, a great feature for protecting them. I'll leave a link in the show notes and use code WWSimon10 to get 10% off your own prints. Okay, let's get into the comparisons on real life prints. I'm going to rank these on the factors that I think matter most when comparing camera sensors and image quality. There are clearly other factors like autofocus systems, how many memory cards it has, and frame rates as well, but that's for another discussion. First is details and resolution. This is basically perceived sharpness to the eye. Second is dynamic range, which is basically highlight and shadow recovery. Third is noise and low light performance. How clean is the image in poor light? And fourth, color, fidelity, and depth. This is subjective, but how do the colors look for accuracy and quality? Let's start with my first shots, shot in what I'd call overly bright conditions. For those newer to photography, bright light is not your friend in photography. It overexposes your whites, creates very dark shadows in the shade, and washes out your colors. A good test of camera performance. So starting with the full frame Canon R5, the side of the lighthouse here is able to recover some detail in the overly bright shingles, and the dark areas look clean. Colors look good in the sky, are decently vivid in the reds on the lighthouse tower, and the dead grasses have some color in them. The shadows look clean and with decent detail. And the brightest part of the sky on the right is still a nice blue, although less colorful than the left part of the sky seen. The smaller censored R100 is a little behind in the details department, but still very good. The dynamic range is okay, but I've lost lots of detail on the white side of the lighthouse. The dark areas in low light still look very clean. And color preservation, though, is good in the tower, but a bit behind the full frame, but still looks good in the grass and the sky. For the iPhone in bright conditions, the sharpness, which really isn't affected by too much light, looks okay. The dynamic range is where it suffers. The side of the lighthouse building has no detail, and the sky is looking pale on the right. The shadows still look okay though. As for colors, the light tower reds are paler, and so is the grass. Here's a summary of my scores for the 3 cameras in the too bright scenario. Okay, on to the just right light shots, starting with the R5. Sharpness really good, tons of detail. Fine details have also been preserved in the white sides of the building, and the shadows look very clean. Top marks for both dynamic range and noise. For the R100 crop sensor in these great conditions, it does very well. The sharpness is great, almost up to the R5. For dynamic range, the white sides of the building look great, and the darks still look clean. The sky is though a wee bit more washed out. The shadows still look very clean and detailed. And the colors look very good, but a wee bit less balance between the hot and cold spots than the R5. Still very good though. As for the cell phone, on the details front, it does very well, very passable. On dynamic range, it does decently well with details captured in the bright side of the building, and sky isn't blown out on the right. On the shadows though, I can see elements of software manipulation on the snow and the grasses here on the far right, as I can see some artifacts. But in the colors, I see a bit of an issue. While the blues and reds in the scene are well captured and similar to the other cameras, the lighthouse has turned an overly yellow color, which doesn't look natural. Here's a summary of my scores for the just right light scenario. And now onto the low light scenario, shot at ISO 5000. The professional grade Canon R5 still has a pleasant image to look at. The details are still decent, although less than in good light. For example, the sides of the building show lots of structure in the siding, and the fence posts are detailed. The dynamic range is solid, with the shadows showing details like these very dark areas, like the vehicle doors and grass. There is a wee bit of noise in the image, but not enough to ruin it. This could easily be cleaned up with software, or left in for character. And the colors, while subdued, look accurate. a nice pink in the sky on the left, a natural looking dark red in the tower, and a deep blue sky. For the R100 entry-level crop sensor, the sharpness is technically okay, but lessened by noise. Note that this will lower the details available to see. The dynamic range isn't that bad, but the shadows look murky with fewer features. The sky on the right looks colorless. As for noise, it's clearly more than the full frame. And in this camera, I'd say the use of noise reduction software is necessary to save this image, where it was optional on the full frame. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the color fidelity. Other than the noise taking away from its attractiveness, when I back up, the colors look very good for a dark scene. And finally, for the cell phone in low light, well, it's pretty bad. And I'm not a cell phone camera hater, by the way. Use it if that's what you have. But in this case, the camera software has taken over. The noise reduction on it has gone overboard badly, and there's no details left. Likely through binning the 48 megapixel sensor to 12 megapixels, creating virtually larger pixels, and adding enough blur to hide the noise still. The dynamic range has been salvaged in the dark areas, possibly by stacking photos together, such that you can indeed see in the shadows. But they've been brightened abnormally and they look mushy. The bright areas on the building are featureless compared to even the R100. Given the amount of noise reduction that has been applied, the low light performance is poor. And the color fidelity is pretty bad, as we're starting to get greens where there wasn't any on the right. And we've lost the pinks in the sky on the lower left. I'm guessing this is software talking, saying skies should be blue. So it took the pink away. But in this case, they're supposed to be pink. Now, before you say that I'm picking on this brand of phone or bad software, I'm not. This is a reflection of the light gathering capacity of a very small sensor rather than the brand or technology. It's doing the best it can with what it's got. Here's the summary scores of the low light scenario. So what's the result of all of this? The main conclusions. First, in good light that's neither too bright nor too dark, the difference between sensor sizes is much less. Good light makes images look sharper, have more saturated colors, and doesn't push the limits on lights and darks. As such, smaller sensors can catch up to larger sensors and do okay, and even phones can do an okay job. Secondly, in harsh light and especially low light, larger sensors perform better by capturing lights and darks better, using better color fidelity, and capturing more detail. But when not pushed too hard, the crop sensor can do very well. Like if shooting a landscape on a tripod all the time at base ISO. It's very competitive. And with its small size, very convenient. If I were climbing to the top of Mount Everest and wanted a photo at the top, I'd bring a crop sensor, held close to my body so it wouldn't freeze, not a larger full-frame camera. If you can control the lighting scenarios of your shooting and shutter speeds, a crop sensor is a great choice for the money. Thirdly, while in good light the performance is least between sensor sizes, the difference is greatest in low light photography. That's why a full frame camera is often the choice of Milky Way and wildlife shooters like me, who often shoot in very dark conditions. Also wedding photographers who shoot in dark venues without a flash, and indoor pro sport shooters who need lots of shutter speed in dark gyms. And by the way, my view is there's no this camera is always better. If you have the best dynamic range camera in the world, but you leave it home because it's too big, it's not the best all the time. A smaller camera stuffed in the pocket might be best on that day. Or you don't buy any camera because the best is often out of reach financially, then it's no longer the best for you. Get what you can afford, put some good glass on it, and go shoot. Use what you have. And by the way, if you want to check out Whitewall, head over to this site and I'll share a link below. And if you want to try printing your own photos by the best, use code WWSimon10 to get 10% off your own prints. There's just something amazing as a photographer to see your own work in print and to hold it in your hands. I hope you can use these tips to make the right equipment choices for you so you too can come home with your own unique and amazing photos. I know you can do it.